Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another opinionated episode of the Single Parents Podcast. This is the podcast for anybody whose life may have turned out a little less than traditional. You got Anthony here. You got Steph here. We're chilling on her couch, just catching up because, we caught up on an hour's worth of stuff.
Yeah.
But I need to ask you about the fact that you just got back from a girls' trip in Vegas.
Yes.
So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to stick up my hand and I'm going to have you give me my souvenir from the trip. Okay, if the audio listeners, I'm still waiting. My hand is still out.
I forgot.
She forgot? Oh.
I did look.
Okay.
I was looking, but then it was just like so many things were happening and I was like, I don't know what to get. Like, do you just get the boring Vegas shot glass?
Right.
What kind of souvenir do you get? Your favorite podcast host? I
just put what?
Too much. I put too much pressure on myself.
I think you really
panicked.
did. Yeah. You. Yeah, it is a lot of pressure, to come back with the perfect souvenir, especially when someone's going to bring it up on a show where other people are going to listen and have opinions and judge. So I guess, in a way, just the fact that you came back safe and sound.
There we go.
I think that's a souvenir that's good enough to me.
I want everyone to know, too, that I am a great gift giver.
Oh,
so
really?
Maybe that's where the pressure was coming from. I'm like, I can't find the perfect gift, so no gift is better.
Okay. I suck at gifts. I'm not.
Maybe I'll write Viva Las Vegas on Zeus's bandana that I'm going to embroider for him.
There you go. Yeah, she's making
souvenir.
my dog a embroidered bandana. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
So
it's one of my many old lady hobbies.
I like it. All right. So what can you share from your trip? I saw some pictures. They look pretty cool. Look fun, but
it was so low key.
Is that real or is that sarcastic?
Somewhat real.
Okay.
I actually, weirdly enough, for anyone who's not familiar with where we're from, we're only 6 to 7 hours away from Vegas. So I actually spend quite a bit of time there. I know to anyone who doesn't live close to Vegas, it feels like such a novelty thing to go to Vegas.
Right.
But I go to Vegas at least a couple times a year. So it's never this big, huge rager party thing for me just because I go there all the time. And I feel like when it's something that feels a little less accessible, you go hard,
Fair.
But we did have a lot of fun. Weirdly enough, Vegas was kind of dead this week. And I don't know if it's because it's spring break in Nevada and for most colleges. And I don't think that Vegas is necessarily a spring break destination. So it was weirdly Wednesday night, which it's a Wednesday, so I wasn't that surprised. But Vegas, if you've been there, you know that every night is a Saturday night in Vegas. So it was honestly kind of spooky. We're walking down the strip towards the end of the night heading home or back to our hotel. There was no one out and it was so weird. There were so little people. And at that point it was fairly late. It was probably 1 a.m. But it was just so weird. I've never seen Vegas so empty.
Wow.
Probably, the best part of my trip, we spent pretty much all day Thursday at the pool.
Oh, yeah.
It was so nice out, sunny, just laid out in the sun all day. Had, insanely expensive pool cocktails and just laid out all day. And that was the best. Honestly, I could do that every single day in Vegas. That's one of the main reasons I go to Vegas is to sit by the pools.
Pool.
I love Vegas pools. Yeah. There's nothing like them. They always have music playing. The drinks are good. You get such good sun.
But do you feel like it was a night? Because I know you've been working a lot. You've been killing it, obviously, as a badass mom, podcast co-host. So you juggle a lot of balls in the air. You got a lot of plates spinning. Yeah. So do you feel like you were able to get away and just enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I feel like it was a really good reset. Definitely. Just it was just me and one other friend, which I love. Going with a big group to Vegas is always fun.
Right.
But it was just me and one of my best friends. And we literally just did whatever we wanted to do for a couple days. She went to college in Vegas, so she knows a lot of more local spots. And so we had a ton of fun. It was a really nice reset, just genuinely having no responsibility other than where we wanted to eat dinner that night. So
Nice.
it was really nice.
But I am glad you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. Nothing crazy on my end. Definitely didn't go to Vegas. Definitely didn't sit by any pools, but I'm here.
I saw you had a little guys' night.
I had the guys' night. One of my friends just got back from Kentucky or something like that. And so we hung out because he brought back from his trip like whiskeys and bourbons and stuff like that. So the dudes got together and we enjoyed those and hung out. But I think I appreciate this podcast because in the back of my mind, I knew we were recording today.
Yeah.
So I was like, Anthony, you have a show to do tomorrow. You gotta still be responsible. You can't be showing up at Steph's house all hungover and head pounding and stuff like that. So I paced myself. I was good. I went home at a respectable hour. I drank plenty of water when I got home, and so I'm feeling pretty good.
That's actually something I was thinking about on our trip, because one of the main things that we were like we bought like a box of liquid IVs and like a Pedialyte, and then we had like all these water bottles in the room, and I'm like, it's so funny how drastically different my trips look now versus when I used to go when I was like 23, and we would just like drink so much, and then we'd like get up the next morning and immediately mimosas at breakfast and just like start the day over. Probably didn't drink more than a couple sips of water the whole time I was there. This trip, we're like, we'd get in for the night and we'd be like, okay, drink a liquid IV before you go to bed. And then we'd wake up in the morning and have a liquid IV. And then we'd go down to breakfast and like have a full glass of water before we even drank our mimosa. And like,
I just can't do it. Yeah, you're right. Getting older, you know.
I can't do the hangovers.
The hangover, I don't have time. I mean, nobody wants to do the hangover. But you're right. When I was early 20s, mid 20s, I would just do it, and then I maybe feel like crap for like an hour or two, and then I would spring back into action.
And you'd be fine.
Nope.
You'd like wake up in the morning and go get like greasy fast food, and then you'd be like, all right, I'm good. Now I'm like, truly, if I really like overdo it, like. I actually just had such a bad hangover last Sunday because my friend came over and we were hanging out just at my house and we were doing, this is, you know, just girl stuff. We were karaokeing in my living room, which was actually so fun. We had the time of our lives.
Nice.
But one of our other friends came over and brought like a bottle of 44 North. So then we started taking shots and I would have been fine if I would have just stuck to like my White Claws that I was drinking. But we started taking shots and we were having so much fun and not thinking anything of it. And then, especially when you're at home, you're not paying for shots or ordering them. So you're not really like thinking like, oh, well, I've already taken this many shots. So then Sunday I woke up and I truly fought for my life all day. And I was like, this is brutal. And I won't do it. So I would love to let everyone know I did not have a hangover from Vegas.
Good,
so.
nice. That's again maturity.
Yeah,
that's just only that comes with age and wisdom and experience and that's good. Well, everybody, hope you all are doing well. That was Booze Talk with Anthony and Steph. So I hope you enjoyed that. We're excited to have you all join us today, especially because we're going to get into really the whole basis of this episode actually is centered around you all and your involvement with the show and things that you've shared as you hopefully appreciated the show, listened to the show. So this episode really in particular is only made possible by you. So thank you. We love you. Hope you're doing well. And if you're not doing well, it's cool. You know, we all go through those times. Just know that your friends here, we see you. We love you. You got this. And we're going to keep treading along with you through the highs and through the lows. So we appreciate you. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, though, a few things I'd like to ask you to do. The first thing is perhaps if you feel so inclined to do so, you could leave a review on the episode, whether you're listening on Spotify or heck, even like YouTube or wherever. Just let the algorithms know the show's legit so it can pass it along to more people and we can keep building this community that we have here. Second, you could share the show. You could share the show with a friend, family member, bartender at your local Vegas pool. I was gonna say local Vegas pool, but it's not local unless you like live in Vegas.
Right.
So I guess that only applies to like a very, very small amount of
niche group.
Yeah.
There.
So just
a lot of people live in Vegas, so
that's true.
That's okay.
I'm sure we have some people. If you're listening in Vegas, send us a message. I want to hear directly from you, and I want to hear that you shared the podcast with your local poolside bartender. There we go. We got it out. Pass the show along to more people so we can keep building the community that way as well. And then last but not least, just make sure you yourself have subscribed to the show. Turn on automatic downloads so you never miss an episode in the future.
Something to relate to.
Well, everybody, as we get into this episode, this one's going to be kind of fun. We're going to kind of shake things up a little bit because usually we do the whole 3-segment thing and we kind of talk about a few different topics. But we were just like, you know what? It'd be nice as this is April-ish. So been doing the podcast now consistently for a few months now. We were just like, what if we just go through, whether it be the socials, whether it be through the podcast platforms like Spotify, our email at thesingleparentspodcast@gmail.com. Let's just kind of comb through and look at the different comments we've received so far and kind of share some of them, respond to some of them, answer. We're gonna have a question from a listener that we're gonna get into, and just kind of react, if you will, to some of the things that you all have shared over the last few months. So we're gonna do that in this episode. But if you want, just continue to share your thoughts, share your perspectives, even as you're gonna see in a second. Even if it's some things that you feel like you need to get out about some of the stuff we talk about that maybe we're gonna disagree with, like don't let that stop you. Like, it's good to have some conversations, even if we might have different opinions than you.
Yeah.
Because that's how the conversation grows, and that's how we kind of get different perspectives and voices involved in the show. So this is the Single Parents, Anthony and Steph, comment reaction spectacular episode. This probably won't be the title, actually, when I post this video.
I think that's perfect, actually.
I don't know if it'll let me type all that in the title description, but you'll see what the actual title is, obviously, because you clicked on the episode. So yeah, you ready to get in some comments that people have? All right. So I think first we have a question from a listener that we actually got from our TikTok page.
Perfect.
So subtle plug for our TikTok, I guess. And this person is actually, I had a question in response to our episode about employer, single parent employee relationships, and you kind of shared some stuff from your boss that she had provided for the show when it comes to that topic, and kind of talking about, hey, if you have single parent employees, here's some things to support them and keep in mind, and all that sort of good stuff. So in response to a clip from that episode, most likely talking about, we were specifically talking about like, hey, if you're an employer with single parent employees, you just gotta, be supportive if they may need to run and pick up their kid, or they're gonna be a little late because maybe their kid is sick or what have you, because they're the only parent in the home, so they need a little more grace and understanding when it comes to that. So this commenter asked a question and says, okay, how do you balance all that setup with accusations of favoritism from employees who don't have children? And then he goes on to say, it's a pretty selfish argument from a quote-unquote community perspective, but you see it a lot. And he goes on to say, like a quote that some people might say, looking at a single parent in a workspace, why does he get to come in late because he has a kid, but I can't, type of thing. So basically, when we're talking about the whole dynamic of employers being caring and gracious and understanding about their single parent employees, might be coworkers in the cubicle next to them who are like, oh, well, they get to go work from home because their kid's sick. Well, I never get to work from home.
Right.
They're a little late because their kid had something at school. Well, I can never be late for stuff I have going on. So how come that single parent coworker of mine gets to do stuff that I don't get to do? And then maybe you feel a little of that tension as the single parent employee from your coworkers. You feel that animosity. And so he's asking, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? And right off the bat, I'll share my thoughts. I I just think that I know it's tough, and I know we want to get along with everybody and we want to be liked and understood by everybody. But I think there has to be a point where you, as the single parent employee in this case, just have to know that other people's lack of empathy and understanding is not your problem, basically.
Right.
Because number one of these, we're talking about fellow coworkers, work dynamics. So at the end of the day, I mean, not all the time. I mean, especially if they're responding like this, then they're not like your friends. They're not like your family member. They're your coworkers. Like you go to your work, you do your job, and you have to interact with your coworkers. But at the end of the day, they're most likely just your coworkers. So if they're not able to have that empathy towards your situation, then yeah, I'm not saying it's not going to be tough having to deal with some of those comments and remarks and the stares and stuff like that. But I think you have to realize, like, well, you know what? Like, at the end of the day, coworker in the break room, Martha in the break room, the one saying this stuff, you're not the one who has to go help take care of my kid. You're not the one who has to deal with the sick kid at home and try to balance all the stuff I have to do at work and make sure I don't get behind and still work with the boss. Like you can have your opinion, but if you're not willing to put yourself in my shoes and have empathy, then that's your problem. And it sucks for you that you're not able to do that and you're making this about you. But at the end of the day, hopefully what you would want is if maybe you're not a single parent, but maybe you had something, Martha, in your life come up that you need some grace and understanding for. You would want your boss and your coworkers to be supportive of you.
Right.
So like maybe you don't have a kid at home who's sick, but God forbid, maybe you get hurt or you get sick or a family member gets hurt or sick and you need to go spend some time with your family member. You wouldn't want your coworkers to be like, well, how come Martha has to go take care of her grandma? I don't have a sick grandma. That's not fair. Or you just keep passing it on, because then if you're not going to be sympathetic at all, then where does the line end? Because there's maybe not all employees are single parents, but there's employees who do have different health things that need a little grace. There's employees who maybe have like special needs when it comes to mental health stuff that they need a little grace and understanding for. So are you gonna shame the person who has a doctor's appointment because they have this illness and they need to leave early or take extra time on their lunch break and be like, well, how come that person gets to take 20 minutes after lunch? I'm not sick. I'm not this. I'm not like, no, like, so I just think at the end of the day, you just got to do what you got to do. And, if your coworkers don't want to have a little empathy, that sucks for them. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it really comes down to if people would realize that having this type of workplace community actually makes it better for everyone. And it kind of touches on what you said as well. Whereas like maybe you don't have a kid, but if you have an understanding boss, that does mean like, you know, I have this really important doctor's appointment that the office closes at the same time we do, so I have to go during work. If you have a boss or if you're an employer and you have fostered a workplace like that, it benefits everyone. So, and no matter what, even if you do have a workplace like that, there's always going to be that one person, you know, there's always going to be the one that's like, poor me, like I'm so picked on. And kind of like what you said, they're your coworker.
Yeah.
You don't owe them anything other than you doing your job and fulfilling your duties.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the biggest thing is being upset that someone else is going to work from home, say, because their kid's sick.
Right.
Number one, I would love to see you work while cleaning puke up off the bathroom floor, because I've done it.
Yep.
And I promise you, I would have rather been at work.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that, and a lot of times, I mean, in general, people have a really hard time, especially if you don't have kids, you have a really hard time putting yourself in those shoes. And I think that's where the lack of empathy comes from, because if you as the employee have the flu,
mm-hmm.
somebody else who's had the flu can have empathy for that, because they're like, oh my gosh, like last time I had the flu, it was awful. You can find that empathy because of your own personal experience in it. If you don't have kids and you don't no, I mean, maybe you don't even have friends who have kids or anything. That probably, I guess, would be hard to put yourself in those shoes and be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, like they're probably not having a good time right now.
Right.
Because you don't know what it's like to take care of a sick kid and also try to work while you're doing that. So, but I mean, it really comes down to maybe trying to relay to them that like, this is not me goofing off. Like I'm working, I'm doing serious things. Like, and when it comes down to it, your schedule and what you're doing is between you and your boss.
Yeah.
So anybody else who has anything to say with it can suck it up, honestly, as far as I care. Maybe that's rude. I just don't think at the end of the day, you don't owe anything to anyone other than fulfilling your duties as an employee and being a good team member. But other than that, I mean, if somebody just wants to be negative all the time, sucks for them. Don't let it drag you down.
Yeah, don't worry about the people who, because you're right. I think you would think that the other employees would be encouraged themselves by seeing the fact that their boss is so understanding and will work with you, because then this would be for me, say I wasn't that single parent employee in the office. I was just, regular Joe. I would be like, okay, well, say a day happens when you go out to start your car and you see you have a flat tire. Like, crap, I'm going to be late for work because I have a flat tire. But I know my boss is, usually pretty cool about stuff that's just outside of our control sometimes, because, Anthony in the office, he says sometimes late because stuff with his kids. So I know, like, okay, that shows me that my boss is understanding and will work with me when I call her or call him and say, hey, I'm going to be a few minutes late because I have a flat tire. So you see, like, that, like you were saying, that culture should benefit everybody if you have that understanding. Because then basically what you're wanting is for your boss to rule with an iron fist and like, no, you need to be here by 9:00. And you're like, oh, so sorry, single mom, you got to be here by 9. Sucks for you. And then you're like, oh crap, now I do have a flat tire, and now you just screwed yourself,
and now you're getting written up for something that was out of your control, like,
because like so and I think just having empathy overall is like, maybe you don't understand what it's like to be a single mom or single dad, and that's cool, but like, try your best to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and have that understanding, and just realize that this is what I always say about like job stuff, is that people are people. They're not robots. They're not, AI beings who don't have social stuff or don't have hard days, or just life and it's just going to hit. And so, I would just say, if they just can't get that, then that's on them, and don't try not to lose sleep. As long as like Steph said, as long as you and your boss are cool, you have that understanding, as long as you have that integrity to know that, hey, maybe I do have to miss half the day because my kid is sick, but I know when I show up, I'm going to make it up. I'm going to honor and respect the fact that my boss allowed me to take half the day off, and I'm going to go and show them that I appreciate it by doing my job and doing it extra well.
And I think being willing to pick up the slack for other people in whatever their situations are. Like, there's a really good way of making sure that you're not taking advantage of the situation.
Definitely.
And I think that's really important too.
That's true.
If you're the type of person that's like, well, I'm allowed to be late every day, and you're kind of like
that's
smug,
a good point.
you know what I mean? Like, I think it really comes down to like how you come across and where you're making up. There sometimes is some slack. Like, sometimes you're working on a project that you can't do at home. Like we've said before, I'm a florist and I do a lot of other stuff for my work. I do a lot of our social media and some of our marketing. So there's a lot of stuff that I can pick up the slack and work from home. But when it comes down to it, if we're really busy in the shop, I can't design flowers at home. And my coworkers have to pick up that slack for me. But it also comes down to, if they're sick or, something happens in their home life that they need to go home early, I'm going to pick up that slack right back for them the second they need it. And that's why at my work, I've talked about before, like, I love my job. I love my coworkers, because we all have that understanding with each other that it's like, we're not in a competition. We're a team and we work hard together, and there's always someone there that's willing to pick up the slack whenever it's needed. And so there never comes to this point where it's like, oh, well, Steph had to leave early last week again. Like, it never feels like that. because if one of my coworkers had to leave early, a dentist appointment or whatever, even for something like a hair appointment, I don't care. They pick up the slack for me. I'm going to pick up the slack for them. So
yeah, I like what you said. Like I guess that's one thing you can do on your side as a single parent is be that team player, and also don't feel entitled to the times that you do have to go do certain things, because I think attitude is a big part of it.
For sure.
Because if you're like you were saying, like, well, I have to do this because I'm a single mom, so sorry guys, bye, see you on Monday, then I would understand your coworkers getting pissed and annoyed at you.
Yeah.
But if you have that humility and that understanding and reciprocate that on the other side when other people are going through it and being a part of the team, then if you've done all of that and your coworker's still gonna be piece of crap about it, then
not your problem.
that is not your problem. Do not lose any sleep over that.
For sure.
Something to think about.
Now, Steph, I want to get into a few things that people have commented that I would say, I don't know, maybe you'll hear some of these things and you'll agree with the commenter. But for me, these are some things that I read in our comment section that I would say I don't necessarily agree with, or there's aspects about what they said that I would push back on.
Okay.
Because again, we don't always have to agree on 1,000% people.
Yeah.
Like we can have our opinions.
That would honestly be a little scary.
And boring.
Yeah. I would definitely be like, we're in a simulation if no one ever disagreed with anything we ever said.
That would be trippy. Okay, so this commenter, I think this is also from TikTok, said a single parent and a co-parent are not the same. I am both, and both come with their own issues. So I don't remember what video this was a response to, the context of it, but basically this commenter is saying a single parent is different from somebody in a co-parenting situation. So like, I think what they were saying is like, for both of us,
right,
we're both, I'm a single dad, you're a single mom, but we have co-parenting partners. The other parent is still involved with our kids. So in this viewer's mind, neither of us should be considered single parents because we're not fully taking care of our kids by ourselves 24/7, 365, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go first this time. What would you say to this viewer?
So I think I can see what they're saying, and I can see how drastically different those two things are. And I think we've touched on that quite a few times, that you and I both have, that couple of days of, adult only time where our kids are with their other parent. And we also realize how much of a benefit, I guess, how much of a benefit that is for us.
Sure.
But I disagree with not, I guess, gatekeeping the term single parent. I am 100% a single parent.
Right.
I live in a house that I pay 100% of the bills on. I pay for everything in my life, and in my daughter's life. And, I don't have someone to fall back on. And I think that living in our town specifically is a very unique experience because we live in a mining town. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics of mining and their schedules, but my daughter's dad, when he's at work, he's gone for 14 to 16 hours a day.
Right.
And he's also over an hour bus ride away. So when it comes down to it, when my daughter is with me, I am truly on my own. There's no calling him and being like, hey, my daughter's sick at school today. I can't get out of work. Can you go pick her up? That's not happening for me because he can't drive his car home. He's 2 hours away. So I guess maybe gatekeeping is the right term. I understand the difference between being, and I think you've used this terminology before, being an only parent in your child's life,
right,
versus being a single parent that's in a co-parenting relationship. And I do also understand that each side of those has its own unique problems and kind of obstacles to overcome. But I would say, sorry if this is harsh, I think you're wrong for saying that people who are in a co-parenting relationship shouldn't be allowed to be considered single parents, because at the end of the day, I am a single woman who is raising a child by myself, other than the couple of days every other week that she's at her dad's house. I don't receive any help with parenting when she's with me. So I am doing it solely as a single mom. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. I often say, make sure I get the phrasing right. All only parents are single parents, but not all single parents are only parents. So yes, to maybe the viewer's point, maybe this is what she was getting at, because again, this is just a comment, so maybe I took it out of context. But to their point, yes, I agree. There are people who have their kids literally all the time because maybe the other parent has passed away, or they just like said, screw it, I'm out, I want nothing to do with this kid, and they just literally bounce from day one. They haven't been there, and so it's always been this parent. There are a lot of challenges and obstacles and specific things that person has to navigate for sure, compared to someone like us in a co-parenting situation, where we can like go on trips to Vegas and hang out with the boys whenever our kids are with their other parents and stuff like that. And so 1000% get that. But just reiterating everything you said already, like that doesn't change the fact that we are still single parents.
Yeah.
And one thing I don't understand, if this truly is the viewer's point, is then, well, where do you draw the line when determining who is exactly a single parent?
Right.
Because are you going to tell the mom whose relationship with her kids' dad is that the dad gets to see the kid once a month on the weekends, so like 2 days out of the month, or maybe every other weekend or something like that, so 4 days out of the month? So you're going to tell that mom who has their kid 90% of the month that she's not a single mom, because technically
she's co-parenting.
Yeah, technically the dad's still around and involved. Like maybe it's like, a couple days out of the month, but technically, like, you're gonna tell that mom she's not a single mom? Like, I don't think so. And so, like, I think to make that broad definition of like what is a single parent, what's not a single parent, really doesn't make sense. I mean, my definition is just like, is that parent married or like at least in a serious committed relationship?
Yeah.
No? Okay, then it's a single mom.
Dad. And I think, by my definition, it's anyone who is in the household the only adult.
Okay, yeah.
So I would say, even if you are like we are in a 50-50 custody agreement where the other parent is very involved, in your household, are you the only adult in the household responsible for all of the childcare, bills, anything that comes along with your household? Then you're a single parent. That's how I look at it. And I do think that maybe, like you said, maybe the context we're taking it in is a little different than how she meant it. But I think maybe the way I would word this comment is being an only parent and being a parent in a co-parenting relationship are very drastically different.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, so this is going back to, we had the episode we talked about like workplace stuff. I guess that hit with a lot of people.
Okay.
So we had a question about that, and now we had a comment about this that I don't think I even shared this with you.
Yeah,
so
I definitely haven't heard this one.
Curious to see your response to this. All right, so basically this came from like not a video that I clipped, but like a post that I made about the episode. I was probably talking about like same dynamic, like, hey, employers, have empathy for your single parent employees, what have you. And somebody commented, nobody's responsible for you, talking to single parents, nobody's responsible for you deciding to have kids and not being able to afford it.
Oh.
Here we go. Why be a P? I don't know what this means. Why be P? Whatever. Why something at the workplace? Or maybe she meant, why should the workplace need to acknowledge single parents? They don't get special treatment for deciding this life. So I guess that, but I know this kind of goes into like a bigger conversation when I've heard people make about single parents, is that, you guys chose this, so I don't want to hear how hard it is. I don't want to hear how expensive it is doing this. I don't want to hear how, lonely and exhausting and all this stuff, because you guys chose this life. You should have just either made it work with the other parent, or you should have not had kids if you weren't going to be in it. Like, what's your response to that, please?
I'm just going to make a wild guess. I haven't seen this comment. I don't know who posted it. My guess is going to be that this is someone who's from maybe an older generation.
Maybe.
And I'm just saying that in a generalized way because a lot of times that I see comments like this, it is from someone who's a little bit older. First of all, I think your comment is a little condescending and rude, but thanks for engaging with our post.
Yes. We'll take that engagement for the algorithm, baby.
I think the biggest thing is, and, there are always outliers to every situation. There are people who, choose to go like the IVF route and do choose to have a kid by themselves and do choose to be a single parent. And that is an active decision that they've made in their life. And I don't think anyone makes that decision lightly. Mm-hmm. But I would say for a fair 90% of single parents out there, nobody went into having a child with the plan of doing it by themselves. Nobody. There was never 1 second in the time that I was like, I want to have a baby. I want to have a family, that I was like, I hope one day I get to do this by myself.
Right.
Ever. Like, I never was like, I hope me and my daughter's dad get divorced because I would love to be a single mom. Like, nobody's thinking that. So I think that that's just such a silly comment to make because there are so many situations that cause someone being a single parent. And what it comes down to is you don't know someone's story and you don't know someone's life. You don't know if maybe, like you've said, like maybe their partner passed away and now they are a single parent. Maybe they were in an abusive relationship and their only choice was to be a single parent and to escape that situation. Maybe their marriage just didn't work out. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a single parent. And I think that it is so self-centered to say, well, why should we care that you're a single parent? That's not our problem. That's your problem. You shouldn't have had a kid if you couldn't afford it. Well, you know what? Maybe you should not say any more words. I don't know.
I agree. Yes and amen to everything you just said. So I guess like I always ask people, in my head, I guess. I want to start asking this out loud to people I hear say this. I want to ask them, so like, is your preference that, let's say if it is a toxic, unhealthy, unsafe relationship that the two parents had with each other, so your solution is for them just to keep living in that? That's what's healthy and best for the kid. Yeah. Like if it's an abusive relationship. So you're saying like you should just stick it out for the kid. Like it's going to be worse.
It's only 18 years.
It's
be miserable. Your kid.
Oh my gosh. Like that's your solution. Or like you said, or maybe it's just you got into a relationship with somebody and maybe they showed you a side of themselves that you did genuinely fall in love with and think, no, this is my person. I can build a life with this person. And then that person just turns out to be a completely different person than you thought, and they just leave or whatever. So like you said, not a lot of people go into these relationships thinking it's going to turn toxic or they're going to bounce or cheat or do all these things, but that happens. And so, let's just put all that aside though. I feel like maybe this is not the Anthony and Steph reading comments, spectacular palooza, whatever I said earlier. Maybe this is like a episode about empathy, but let's just say if it is a person, because there are people like this, like you said, I know people like this who legit are just like, hey, I want to be single and I want to be a mom or be a dad. I'm fine being a single mom, single dad. Yeah. What if they said I did choose this for sure? Yeah. So does that mean we still don't extend empathy to them at all because they did make a choice? Like, why is it so hard to look at somebody, regardless of their situation, and be like, whether they chose it or not, be like, hey, like, I understand that it's not always easy for you. I understand that some days you're going to have rough days and, you're going to need to vent a little bit. Why is it so hard to respond like that instead of saying, well, you chose it, so sorry, your life is hard for at least this day? Because they might not even be, because even in that episode, we weren't complaining about being in single parent employees. At all. We were just saying like, hey, like this is the reality. So some days it's going to look like this. So there might be somebody who's not complaining about their life, just maybe like, hey, like today was a little rough. Yeah. So I don't understand why it's so hard to say, I could see why, you probably had a hard morning instead of responding like this.
Well, why should I care?
Yeah, why should I care?
I think that this lady is the coworker from the first guy's comment.
Oh, it was Martha from the break room.
I mean, honestly, just to kind of like wrap it all up, I think speaking to this commenter directly.
Yeah.
If you're a parent, maybe you're not a single parent, maybe you're a parent that's in a relationship, maybe we just happen to come across your page.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe look into yourself and try and figure out why it bothers you so much. Because I think that it's kind of like what we talked about in the very first question.
Mm-hmm.
It genuinely, at the end of the day, should not be affecting you that much what another employee at your job is doing. As long as they're doing their work, as long as they're showing up, whatever their agreement may be with your boss, it's genuinely not affecting you. And I think a lot of people, maybe not just this commenter themselves, should worry a lot more about themselves.
Right.
And I think I do get kind of heated about like these kind of comments because you see, especially like as single moms specifically, you see a lot of comments. Oh, well, you know, we shouldn't feel bad for single moms because more women initiate divorces than men do. And there's so many comments. And I think at the end of the day, just worry about yourself and the job that you're doing and stop worrying so much about if it's such a kindergarten way of thinking like, oh my God, well, that's not fair that they're getting this treatment and I'm not. If you don't need that treatment, you should be happy that you don't need that treatment. If you're not a single parent and you do have a partner that lives in the home with you, or maybe you don't have kids, be happy that you have the life that you have and don't worry about the life that the single parent that you work with has.
Yeah. And I would just say, if you're going to respond like that to single parents, then don't cry if somebody else looks at you when you're like, maybe you are married, like Martha. We keep using Martha.
Yeah.
Maybe Martha comes in and her husband, Bob, pissed her off that morning. It's like, oh, Bob, he was just so annoying, blah, blah, blah. They were like, well, you chose to get married.
You chose to be married.
Sorry, you chose to marry
Why
Bob.
should I feel bad for you that your husband's being a jerk? You chose this.
Yeah, it's your fault. Or your car has trouble. Well, you chose to buy that car.
You chose to get your driver's license. These things happen.
Sorry. Like, I just don't understand why empathy is so hard for
genuinely
people.
Very hard for a lot of people.
I guess.
And I think, you know, if I had my like Mean Girls moment where it's like, I just wish that it was all kittens and rainbows and just worry about yourself and you'll be a lot happier, I promise.
Okay, this next one comes from our YouTube channel. And this person, his name's Luke. YouTube lets you see their actual name, so it's Luke. Luke says, single parent. I'm just gonna read it and then see what your
is this one gonna make me mad too?
Interpretation of this even means. Single parents are the eBay of the dating world.
Okay, I saw this comment also.
Yeah.
What? I don't know what
you
that
don't know
means.
what it means.
So eBay, I have never used eBay.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And maybe this is like really the millennial popping out in me, but I genuinely don't know what eBay is. Like I know what it is.
Okay.
But is eBay like used?
Yeah.
Items?
I think that's how I took it.
Okay.
This person's basically saying if you're getting with the single parent, you're getting used goods.
Oh, gross. Luke, you suck.
Man, Luke. And I wanted to bring this up because I've had very, very similar comments to this, especially from YouTube. I don't know what are you guys doing on YouTube? You guys like bringing up this disgusting point, but I've had comments before. This is why I chose this one to bring up this conversation of people saying that, number one, I've seen people say like, I would never ever get with a single mom or single dad, not out of preference, because we talked about it. If that's not your preference, cool,
and that
fine.
has more to do with like you wanting to be a parent.
Exactly, that's fine, but it's mostly out of because again, the used goods language, the somebody else's leftovers language, the baggage, and all these things. People basically saying like you shouldn't get with a single mom or single dad because they're basically like leftover.
Ew. Okay. These are, and I will say, I don't know, I haven't read all of them, but 99% of the time it's a man commenting something like this.
Luke, yeah.
No offense to you, but this does come from a place of like deep rooted misogyny, I think.
Yes.
And it's just so gross. Like, and I think about like, would you ever talk about your mom like that, Luke? Luke, would you like us to send this to your mother?
Oh, Luke, you're in trouble.
Because by this thought process, your mom had you So is your mom now used goods, or she's not because maybe she's still with your dad? Like, I can't understand this way of thinking. And I think, like I said, it comes from such a place of misogyny. And like, I don't know what you want. Like, are you looking for like the perfect virginal woman? Like, I'm not sure. Like, your way of thinking is so outdated and gross. I don't think anyone is used goods ever. So, also, like, do you think that you're going to like find a wife that's never dated before you? Like, I really can't understand the way of thinking. And I think it's so gross. And you need to get off YouTube and really get a life.
That was going to be my point, is that if your whole take on SPs is, well, they have all this baggage and they have all this used good stuff there, all this history, then you need to build a robot and date that robot and marry that robot, because whether it's a single parent or not, if you're going to get in a relationship with a human being, they're going to come with history. They're going to come with relational stuff. They're going to come with a past. Like, doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic past, but they're going to have trauma relative to the things they've gone through in life. They're going to have, relational takes on different perspectives based on their circumstances. Like, nobody's going to come out of this beautiful life-size Barbie box that you just get to unwrap and be like, okay, so
it's so unrealistic.
You're like you say, like, you're this perfect virgin girl that has no original thoughts, no past relationships, no history, no trauma whatsoever. Like, again, I want to reiterate, if your preference is not dating a single mom or single dad, that's fine and understandable. Like, we get that, and that's cool.
Depends on why it's your preference, I guess we should say.
I guess, yeah.
If you're Luke and your preference is that you don't like used goods, then you suck.
Yes.
But if your preference is, like we talked about before, I don't have interest in having kids, I don't have interest in parenting someone else's kids, so that's not for me, that's fair. Exactly. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that, and those people shouldn't be receiving any hate.
No.
But Luke should receive hate.
Luke should get all the hate. And so it's just a sad mentality, because basically I think if that is your whole mentality, the whole Luke mindset, we'll just start calling it, then what you're really doing is you are, I guess, taking away like some awesome opportunities to meet people, because you're just looking at the surface, right? Like you said earlier, everybody has a story, but you're just looking at the surface. What did the surface say? Oh, single mom. All right, well, not moving any forward with that relationship, because automatically going to discount that person just because they must be used goods or something. It's the same thing as like surface level. Oh, they're from this town. Oh, nope, would never date somebody from there.
Yeah.
Or they lived in this amount of wealth growing up. They lived like in poverty growing up. Nope, not gonna date that person because I need to be somebody. Like, you're just basically
putting everyone into like a little box. Yeah.
You're basically saying you are just this one thing. You're just from a poor town, or you're just a single mom, or you never went to college, so you're uneducated, or maybe you have this physical attribute about yourself, and then you're just really just pigeonholing people into one little thing. And it's sad, because you're going to miss out on a lot of possibly awesome relationships with people if you just label them one thing and only see surface level stuff. So anyways,
something to be encouraged by.
Let's end with sharing some nice comments that we've gotten from people, because this was, man, I really appreciate these comments, because as we've been doing the show and kind of figuring out like what we want this to be, like, it can be tough and it's a lot of work. And as we say in the show, I said before, like, we're like real life single parents. We're not actors. We're not just doing this for the clout or whatever. Like, we're legit single moms and single dads. And so we have full on lives and careers and kids we're raising outside of all of this. And so it can just be tough sometimes. And so whenever we get to read some of these comments and messages from like the ones I'm about to read, I don't know, at least for me, like it's really encouraging and humbling, because it just shows that even though this podcast isn't like the biggest thing in the world, and we're not like call her daddy or anything like that, like, we're hopefully through just us getting behind a couple of mics and a camera, encouraging people out there. And that just, for me, it just makes me feel pretty good. So I am excited to read a few of these. So this one comes from, I think, TikTok. This is from Bree. She says, not a single parent anymore, but I'm so thankful you guys are shining light on these topics. And I guess this is when we were talking about like assumptions.
Okay.
Assumptions ruined my self-esteem as a young mom. You guys are awesome for helping people understand. I don't know. What are your thoughts from Bree? Yeah, that's a pretty awesome comment.
I think that's partially like why we wanted to do that episode, because I think I can see how it really does like hurt your self-esteem a lot, and it can make you almost second guess yourself sometimes in the decisions that you're making when it comes to being a single parent. And it's really hard, as much as like I'll even sit here and say like, you know, to the couple of crappy comments, like nobody cares, like nobody wants to hear what you have to say. But at the end of the day, like when you do get those kind of like rude, demeaning things said to you, especially when it's more than likely something that was out of your control, it's really, really hard to remind yourself that like you are doing a great job and you are putting in that work for your kids and providing them the life that you want them to have. And I think that a lot of single parents need to hear more often that they are doing a great job, and that the stereotypes surrounding them as a single parent do not define them.
Definitely. I agree. Because if you think about it, if you're somebody with actual empathy, if you're like Martha or Luke or some of these other trash people we talked about, then you just do your thing. But if you're somebody with actual empathy and you have a single parent in your life, friend, family member, whatever, or even a coworker, think about the fact that for the most part, most likely, they are doing their thing with their kids at home by themselves. And so their kids, depending on their age, I guess, like they're kids. They're not going to always walk up and be like, thank you so much for taking care of the house and paying the bills and for getting me to school on time. Like they're
I
just
would faint if all of said that to me.
Oh my gosh. If my kids said that, I think my kids will say that, but they'll do it when they see I'm like stressed and at my breaking point. And they're like, we got to say something nice to dad. Otherwise he's going to like, his brain's gonna explode.
Olive will like, you know, in the little kid way, like you saw like the picture she colored me the other day that was awesome. Like, it said like, it was so cute, like literally, maybe we'll put a picture of it on our Instagram or something, but it just said like, Mom, thank you so much for loving me. I love you so much. And I was like, literally, I was like, I'll cry right now. But I think if she like, I guess in a little kid's mind, like they're not going to be like, hey, thanks for doing the dishes. Right. Like they don't think about that. That's just their norm. Like I eat the food, mom cooks it. Like that's exactly like the normal. But it is like to your point, it can be hard to never have that. Like maybe in a relationship, you have like the, hey, thanks for making dinner tonight, or thanks for doing the dishes. Thanks for keeping up on the housework. Whereas like as a single parent, I'm like high five myself when I have a successful
I literally
night.
go in the bathroom and high five myself in the mirror.
Like I'm like, I crushed it today.
Yes. And so like, again, if you're empathy, just maybe reach out to your single parent friends and be like, hey, like I just want to see, I see you, man. And not even like genuinely do it. Cause I know like, especially social media, it's easy to like respond on there, be like, hey, cool picture, you took your kids to the park and whatever. That's nice. But if you out of the blue, just be like, hey, I just want to hit you up. Just want to say like you're doing a great job. I know what you're doing is not easy and there's tough stuff that comes up, but I just guarantee if you did that, it would mean the world to them, because we are hearing we as single parents hearing a lot of stuff from the Lukes, from the Marthas, that as much as we're saying, like you said, like, hey, just kind of brush it off, forget those people, trash, like it still hurts and it still gets to you, and we understand that.
There's always those moments, you know, when you get too deep in a TikTok comment thread and you're like, I should have quit reading because now I'm feeling real bad.
Oh, yes. All right. And this next comment comes from somebody from Spotify, actually. Because I don't know if you all knew this, but if you went to our account on Spotify, sometimes there's like polls and stuff that I'll put up, just kind of get your feedback on different things for the episode. And so this listener did that on Spotify, but it was particularly the episode that I did. I think this was BS. before Steph. This is before Steph's time. This is when I was solo, but I did an episode reading a basically like a letter that a single mom wrote to like other single parents out there. So she responded to that episode saying, "As a single mom of soon to be 3 kids, sometimes it can be overwhelming, tiring, and hard at times. I really love how raw her emotions came flooding out. I really needed to hear this today." That makes me feel really good, because for being candid for myself, sometimes as somebody like doing the show, it can be really easy for me just to like put it out and see the numbers coming back, like who listened on Spotify, who listened on Apple and YouTube and all these things, and be like, okay, well, that's cool, but let's get those numbers up and let's spread the show and let's share and do these things. But this was humbling for me to read, because it just showed me that each one of those numbers that I see on our back end are not just numbers, but actual people. And like you said, people with stories. And so for myself, that just makes it so worth it doing the show, to where even if like I did that whole episode that one day and it only, I think maybe I said this in the episode, if it only like reached just one person who it really needed to go to, then I would consider that a win. I think I said that in the episode. I'm just now realizing. I
think you did.
And then I'd read, that's pretty cool. I'm just now putting that together.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure other people appreciated the episode, but I'm glad I did that episode, because that episode seemed like it needed to be for that one. She didn't put her name on here, but for that listener. So that's I'm just now realizing that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think that I also think, kind of touching base on what she said in her comment, it's really easy to just kind of like go through day by day, and maybe even if you are having a hard time, maybe you don't have someone to vent to about it, or maybe you aren't the type of person that like is vulnerable and opens up to people about stuff. And so having someone who has gone through what you've gone through in whatever capacity, having them just be really vulnerable and say something that maybe hits home with you, I think is really nice sometimes, for you to be able to take that moment and be like, you know what? Yeah, like sometimes this is really hard, and sometimes sometimes I'm not having a good time. And to be able to have that, like with a person you don't know, have that like connection, and know that like I'm not the only person out there who goes through this stuff. And for every bad comment, there are other people who get what you're going through and sympathize with you. And just being able to have that connection, I think, is really important. So
definitely. And then lastly, I just pulled a section of a message I got from somebody who emailed us at the singleparentspodcast at gmail.com. I believe her name was, Rachel. I remembered it. So this came from Rachel. Actually, I can just pull it back up here. And she says, "Hi, Anthony. I'm a new listener. I just listened to your podcast for the first time." This was back in January 10th. Again, BS, before Steph. But I guess hopefully I did a good job with it, because she says, "Because another single parent recommended it to me, and I love it. Mainly, I wanted to get in touch to say thank you so much for making this. I felt so seen and understood and energized listening to you talk about being a single parent. The parent who recommended it to me actually shared it in a focus group I was running last year. I'm currently working on starting a magazine for single parents here in the UK." So this is a listener from across the pond. "I wanted to share with you how much I appreciated your work, because I know from experience how every message of support means a lot when you're doing something like this." And she's right. Yes, Rachel, you're right. Like, those awesome supportive messages are great, because the stories just remind us why we're doing this, and why we, again, as real life single parents, there's a million things that we could be doing. And we're recording this on a Saturday. There's a million things that we could be doing on a Saturday. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And this is why I started the show, and this is why I asked Steph to be a part of the show, is because of people like Rachel and the girl from Spotify and all the others, all of you out there who just need to know that, hey, there's people out there, even if it is across the world, like the UK listener, but there's people out there who understand what I'm going through, who know what I'm going through, who can relate to what I'm going through, who see me, and who can remind me, for our theme for the year, that I'm good at being a single parent. I'm hot for being a single parent. It's cool. It's awesome. Nothing to be ashamed of. Even on those hard days, it's something that I can hold my head up and almost be proud about. So
yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. I think that kind of touching on what I said for the last one, it's like being able to know that like you're not in it alone. And that was a big reason why when you came to me and were like, would you be interested in like being a part of this? I'm like, yeah, actually, because and it's like you had asked me like, oh, do you know a lot of other like single parents? Like, you have any other friends? And I'm like, not really. So as much as like I've raved about my support system, which is amazing, I don't have a lot of people who can relate when it comes to the specific struggles of being a single parent, or maybe, you know, a situation in my co-parenting relationship. Like I don't have a lot of people directly in my life that can relate to me with that. And so I think it's really nice to be part of this community that you started building of other people who, you know, when I say something, they're like, you know what? Yeah, like that's exactly how I feel. And I think that that's a really nice connection to be able to build with other people.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's good. I'm glad we ended on that note. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you out there for being a part of this community. I'm glad we're growing. I'm glad to see that this is reaching people and encouraging people, and it just really makes me excited for the future and the things that we want to do with the show, where the show could go. We'll see, but we're super, super thankful. So yeah, thank you all for being on this journey with us. Keep using the socials, the email, keep sending your comments. Maybe every once in a while we'll do an episode like this where we respond to some of the comments just
kind
to
of
make
touch
sure.
Base.
Just to make sure it's not just us two yapping at each other and yapping at you. Like, we want your voices in here. So we appreciate that. All right. Well, I think that's going to get ready to do it. I don't have my kids tonight, and they're with their mom. And that means I get to have Chinese food for dinner because my kids don't like Chinese food. So I can't eat it when they're at home.
That's like a crime.
They complain. And so I can only have it when they're not at home because I don't want to hear them whine about the fact they don't like it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go get Chinese food. I think you're going to go pick up your daughter and hang out with your daughter.
Yeah. She ditched me for her grandma today.
She needed the grandma time.
Yep. So I'm going to go get her and we're going to hang out, which will be great. But
all right. Well, we're going to go do that. You all go do what you got to do. And don't forget to circle back around next week for another episode of the Single Parents Podcast. In the meantime, you all out there, just stay beautiful. Bye.
Bye.